This is Jack Whitby from JCAD Pictures doing inspiration for my thriller film. The film I chose to get inspiration from was Silence of the Lambs. And Silence of the Lambs is about a young FBI candidate named Clarice Sterling who needs to interrogate a manipulative killer to receive his help on catching another serial killer who skins his victims. I was inspired by a few camera shots in this film. Silence of the Lambs is a suspenseful thriller. The camera shots can be slow at times to create an intense atmosphere and or to preserve a room which someone or something bad could be in. There was a shot like this within the film when Clarice Sterling first goes to the asylum to visit Dr. Hannibal Lecter to ask him some questions for Jack Crawford, who is back at the police station. As she gets to the room above where he is kept, and before she goes into the room, Dr. Frederick Clinton leaves her to see him alone, as she thinks it will be better as he and Dr. Hannibal Lecter are arch enemies, as he explains. The camera pans around the room in a point of view shot to observe the room and the characters in it. This shot works well as it shows how scared Clarice is looking around the room slowly and doesn't know what's inside it, so is weary but curious. And you can see that by the camera slightly shakes as she goes around the room, as she's a bit scared to be what could be in there and what type of people are in there. And I liked this camera shot as it added suspension, the suspension of seeing Hannibal for the first time and the intensity on the screen, and it added to the intensity of the scene, and because it is a point of view shot as well, it makes us as a viewer feel as if we are in danger too because of this insane psychopath. So when the camera was panning around the room, it made me as a viewer feel a bit uneasy, as we didn't know what was in that room, and though we knew Dr. Hannibal Lecter wasn't going to be in there, we didn't know what was going to be in there or what could have went wrong in the situation. So I would like to use a shot like this in my thriller film, as it has inspired me it's inspired me to create more tension in scenes and maybe not have as many quick camera shots, as a slow steady one can be just as effective, or if it has a little bit of shape to it, it doesn't always mean it's bad camera work, it can add to the tension, and in a point of view shot it can make you see as if how the character is seeing, which is a bit shaky because of fear. And because of this tension, it will keep the viewers interested in what's going on the screen and how they might feel in danger along with our main character of the film. I was also inspired by another camera shot within this film, which is right at the beginning. Clarice Sterling is training by running through a forest. In one of the shots of her running, it is a tracking shot of just her legs running fast. I like this shot because of what you can do with it and how it looks as she's running away, and how it looks as if she's running away from someone in an intense scene, which could be if the legs are running because of how fast the legs are running. And though in the film she was just training and running through a forest, because we had only just started watching the film, we didn't know why she was training or why she was running. So this scene of her running with her legs made it very effective, and because the legs were moving so fast and were almost blurring on the camera, it makes you think that she is running away fast and with a passion because someone's chasing after her. And because of that, I would like to use it in this shot in my film, as it's inspired me to make an intense chase scene in which I could feature this shot, and as I said, I could have the villain or the enemy of my thriller film chasing the hero or a civilian as they run through the forest. Now I'll move on to the music in the film. The music always builds to a scene and is usually played in the background to make an intense scene seem more worrying to the viewer, and or to make the viewer sad to what is happening on screen. Like when they find out about the girl who has been murdered. The music becomes very sad, which does affect the viewer, but the music never plays by itself usually, it's usually just a little bit in the background while the characters speak in this film, which is different to other films, but I quite like this method. The music that inspired me was when Claire was going to see Hannibal for the first time. As she got out of the elevator on the bottom floor with the most psychopathic inmates at the asylum, she had to walk past them all to get to Hannibal at the end. The music slowly built with intensity and got slightly louder every inmate she passes, which made her walk seem longer as the viewer just wanted to see Hannibal after the horrible things they've heard about him. As she gets to Hannibal, he gives her a creepy, sadistic smile and the music slowly fades out. I liked this music as the scene was already tense, and this was the first time the viewer was going to be able to see Hannibal, and before all the viewer had heard about him is that he was described as an animal. And so the music added to the suspension of what he would look like and how he acted towards Clarice. I would like to use music like this in my film, as it has inspired me to make an intense scenes because of how it makes you feel as a viewer when watching, and makes the scene seem more scary, which keeps the viewers interested and on the edge of their seats. So without the music in the background for this film, the film would have not had the same feel and the same intensity and scary atmosphere as it would have. So I think that having music build towards a viewing of a character, whether it be light and happy towards a good character or very dark and intense towards a very bad character like Hannibal, it can really affect the scene. However, there was another piece of music which I liked, which is when the girl was trapped in Buffalo Bill's well, in which the music is loud and more devastating, with an eerie tone because of how the girl screams, which gives effect because there's nothing the girl can do to get out. Her heartfelt scream, which I just mentioned, was full of fear and added to the music, which made the scene terrifying, as it felt as she was just waiting for death. The music added to the scene, which I liked, and I would also like to use something similar in my thriller film, as it has inspired me to make my thriller film a little bit scary at times, to make the enemy's bad ways and seem more sadistic, and make the audience hate the enemy even more because of how evil he is and how what music they bring to a scene. So with very upbeat and happy music towards the hero, the viewers are going to like that and feel more safe with the hero. However, if you have intense, in some cases uneasy noises to listen to, such as screeching, screaming, it's going to make the audience feel uneasy and make them feel scared and in some ways hatred towards the enemy character, which is going to build towards the hero and villains. Heroes having all the audience with them and following on the film, supporting them, and the enemies having nothing to do with the audience yet. The audience just wants the hero to prevail, and the music really helps with this to create an atmosphere towards both sets of sides. Now I'll move on to inspiration by setting. The setting is always very dark in Silence of the Lambs and always builds to the tension of the film. The majority of the film is rather set in a police station where the murders are being solved and the police are trying to solve the murders and find out why and where they're happening, and or in the asylum where Clarice goes to visit Hannibal and asks him questions. I like the asylum because it is a place not often talked about because of what type of patients are held inside. I also like the location as it gives a creepy feel to the film, and knowing that all these mentally ill people could break out at any moment in the film, and or something could go terribly wrong within the film. This has inspired me to have an asylum in my thriller film, as I feel it is a good location for a thriller film to take place, because it is a good place for the enemy to be or to have friends in which he could break them out. It could also be a location for the hero, as it could be a base where they keep other convicts under control, and to have a place to put the enemy in when they capture him, or as a place to work out where and how to catch the killer they are following. So the asylum is a huge place, and I feel like you could also have a storyline, this will link on later, where if you have the asylum as a setting, like Batman, all these people could break out. You know, Batman has all the villains such as Killer Croc, the Joker, the Penguin. And in my thriller film, Magadan something similar, so all these mentally ill patients break out and in the end cause havoc on the city, which not only gives them one killer to follow, but they have to follow a load of them, because this one killer could set all of them free, or something along those lines. So the setting is very important and links quite well to the storyline on how it's going to work. But the asylum is a very dark and creepy place, and as I said, I want this thriller film to be a little bit scary, so this will work well. I was also inspired by Buffalo Bill's secret basement, where he did all his dirty work of starving, killing and skinning his victims. This was very darkly lit, which added to the atmosphere of not being able to escape and being trapped forever until death. I like this because it is an unusual location for a victim to be trapped in, and adds to the mystery of the killer that they have at hand. I would like to use this in my thriller film, as it makes the film seem more realistic, having someone capture their victims and putting them in their basement, which makes the film more scary as the viewer will feel that it could happen to them, and as a result creating more intensity to the film, which is what we want. And because of how realistic it could be, it will add to that scary vibe of the film, which all links into, as I said before, having a scary thriller film. And also, we don't want the film to be completely scary so that we can't get a range of audiences, but we want it to be a little bit intimidating, and in some places making the viewer seem a bit uneasy. The characters in Silence of the Lambs are very deep and are all very different from one another. However, the one that inspired me the most is none other than Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Dr. Hannibal Lecter is a brilliant and intelligent man. He is also a serial killer and a cannibal, preparing the meat of his victims into a tasty dish for himself and serving them to unexpected guests. Although he is a killer, Lecter is still a very refined gentleman. His appearance is well dressed, he speaks very professionally, and he has incapable wit and astonishing intelligence. I like his character, as even though he is a villain and one of the most evil men in the asylum, throughout the film he still seems to gain the viewer's trust, even though they know what he has done and what he's capable of. And I for one felt that I could trust this character for some reason, as he was trying to give Clarice the answers in riddles, but for some reason, because of his tone and the way he spoke and his actions, it almost seemed that he's a good guy, and I felt trust for them, even though this was not a good thing. I also like his character, as he has a very intelligent and sadistic way of which he knows all the clues and whereabouts of the killer, but will only play riddles with Clarice on where and what he knows, so that he can have a bit of fun with it as he plans his escape and goes along with his escape, which shows he's devious and dangerous. This inspired me to have an intelligent yet sadistic villain in my thriller film, as it can make the viewers trust the killer, and towards the end of the film create a twist that shows that he was a villain after all, which can create a good tension throughout the film and keep viewers hooked with the film. His face mask, which he appears to wear at points in the film, has inspired me to have a killer in my thriller film, as this can be scary to the viewer and gives a creepy feel to the movie, as the viewer knows it could happen in real life. So this little mask that he wore, which is almost like the Demon Kane from WWE, and because of the colouring and the shade of it and the mouth bars, it makes it seem very dangerous and adds to his character on how dangerous he can be, and creates that scary tension, which I really liked and has inspired me to create scary tension towards my villain, who could also be a villain in my thriller film. Another character which inspired me, which was the hero main character, Clarice Sterling. She is a trainee for the FBI and wants to join the force. She is a kind, determined and brave young woman, and uses her pretty looks and wit to get information of Hannibal. Although she is young, she is given an opportunity to help with a case of Buffalo Bill, which helped her move up in the ranks as an FBI agent. I like this character as she is young and in training, which makes the viewer think that she is incapable of doing great tasks and stopping a villain. But she is an underdog and overcomes the odds, which are not only surprising, but viewers like to see a happy ending, and viewers do like to see an underdog succeed at the end of a film, which will keep them hooked and make them enjoy the film more. I also like this character as she is smart and quick-witted, so she can outthink villains and trick them into giving her information that they shouldn't have. This has inspired me to have a hero similar to this, and how is an underdog and how people think that he is incapable of doing tasks at hand, as this builds to their character and adds to the intensity in a scene when the viewer does not think the hero will be able to win the fight against the villain. I am also inspired to have the hero quick-witted to go out to outthink his enemies and win the battle and get information from them throughout the film, which will lead to the final battle in the end of the film, as this will allow the audience to follow what is going on and feel as if they are part of the film and solving the case with the main character. So the character will be quick-witted, and as I explained in characters in thriller films, Sherlock Holmes, when he quick-witted and thought about how he was going to take down his enemy rather than just running out there all guns loose. And I still stick by that, as Clarice Sterling was very similar to that character and didn't get into any fights, but if she did, she had thought about what she was doing rather than running in there, apart from the final battle, which made the final battle more intense, as because she didn't know what she was doing, it made it more intense because of before she was always planning on how she was going to win. And I think that worked very well with her character. Finally, we have the storyline. The basis of the storyline is about a young FBI agent who gets selected to help the FBI track down a serial killer which has been skinning his victims. To do this, she must speak with the top criminal in the asylum, which is Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who has been sentenced for life in the asylum as he is a cannibal and has murdered lots of people. He gives riddles to her to solve the case, which gets her closer and closer to the villain. It is an intense thriller and crime film which keeps the viewers hooked with the twist and the danger the film brings to its main characters. I like the storyline, as because there is a murderer on the loose, and the only way to catch him is to find the help of the top criminal, who is a cannibal. It brings so much intensity to the film, as the viewer knows the characters are under a time limit to catch the murderer and bring him to safety to the town. It is also a unique storyline, and I liked how it keeps the pressure building throughout the film. It has inspired me to have a killer on the loose in my thriller film, as I'll be able to keep tension levels high throughout the film, which will keep the viewers hooked, and they will be fearful for what might happen to the main characters. So because there'll be a killer on the loose, the villain, the heroes and the viewers are going to feel under pressure because of this, and know they only have a strict time limit to keep to, which keeps the film in a format. Because of the time limit, the film can't drag on and be too long for the viewers to watch. We can have it sectioned off into the planning of catching the villain, the hunt for the villain, and finally the finding and the fight with the villain, which can split the film up into separate lines, which has inspired me to keep a strict time format and inspired me to have the film at about 2 hours or maybe a little bit less, so that people a little bit younger won't get too bored, and for older people as well, which keeps intensity levels high throughout the film as it's not too long. Overall, Silence of the Lambs has inspired me in many different ways for my own thriller film, as it adds the horror feel to the thriller franchise and keeps the tension levels high throughout the whole film, which I liked. And as I said many times, I do like the tension levels to be high, because when I watch a thriller film, I am inspired by all the tension that's going on and how it makes me feel inside, as I'm always on the edge of my seat seeing what's going to happen next. And I feel like to make a good thriller film, you need lots of this in the film. And as the scary horror factor will make it a unique thriller film, just like Silence of the Lambs was.